Hello and welcome everyone, this is Calebovitsch coming to you with another episode of Deck Check. When the latest promo card for Eternal Card Game came out, Caleb Executioner, I just knew I had to make a deck around it. So I made it, fiddled around with it. Unfortunately in the end, the best I could have done for the deck is to cut the promo card out of it. Fortunately, a cool deck came to life. Wanna see? Now this deck list might not look like much, and it does not have a huge win percentage, rather a lower win percentage, but when this deck wins, it is fabulous, to say the least. As I said in the intro, my initial thought of for the deck came from going around and trying to build something around Caleb Executioner, the newest promo card for Eternal Card Game, and doing something like creating a lot of power via rebuild in a Praxis-based deck, and playing Soul's Rest, returning everything to its owner's hand, playing Caleb, having another turn, and Caleb Executioner has a line saying, at the start of your turn, if the enemy player has no units, deal 8 damage to them. So the main gist around it was to return everything, play Caleb, maybe play a mirror image on him, then have your next turn. The board is empty, so you deal 8 and you attack for 8, or if you played a mirror image, you deal 16 and you attack for 16. That was not to be. I started fiddling around with the deck and changed some of the concepts and took some of the concept from my previous deck checks, i.e. from the Smurf Garden and from Rebuild the Vault. And this is what came out of it. I mean, when it comes to the Power/Evangel base, you can probably fiddle around with it slightly better, but let me tell you what this one is about. So you might see here that we have only 4 time cards in the whole deck, not counting the market, and those 4 cards are rebuilds that have quadruple time requirement. So this is a 3 costing spell with revenge. You gain 1 health for each of your units. This is not going to come in very handy in this deck, but also you get +1 power this turn for each of your fire influence. So you need to build up to 4 time and as much fire as possible. But also, as you can see here, the main base of this deck is primal. So this was also a bit of a thought experiment on how far you can stretch the power bases in the current Throne metagame, in the current Throne format. Because this one is splashing for a card outside of the main color of the deck that requires you to go very heavy on the Praxis side. I tried going for a lot of dual powers, obviously, like crests and silexes and seats, etc. I also had some units like Unfamiliar Interloper and Trailmaker, but they were quite weak, and you had to spend some power to play them. So I came with a bit of a crazy idea of including Evangels instead of the other influencers. So Evangels are a cycle from the Flame of Zolta, 1 for each of the main 5 factions. Each one has Fate, gain 1 influence of the certain type, and each one is a 2 costing 2/2 unit with a battle skill. So the main gist of this deck is you are drawing cards, and while you're drawing them, you're gaining some influence. In this case, it's Fire and Primal. And you're just using those Evangels just to bottom them, just to bottom them with Strategize, just to discard them with Honor of Claws, just to take them to the market with Transpose. This is similar to what you had in market juggle decks of old with Jotun Hurler and Zoe, the Endless Horde, and cards like that, or cards with Echo. So these you're getting the effect when you're drawing them, and you don't need them anymore, usually, unless you need to chump block or do something like that, so you just put them to the bottom. 8 is good enough, aside from 20 dual powers, so usually should be enough. for Shafka Evangels for sure. As the other ones, I am torn a bit between Linrai Evangels and Grotov Evangels, the primal or the time ones. And in the past I've used either one or the other. The current version is, as you can see, but in the game videos you're gonna see also me using Grotov Evangels. So that was just me testing things out. But the main thing behind the deck is, as I said, something similar to the Smurf Garden and something similar to Rebuild the Vault. And this time it is not about putting a lot of firebombs in the opponent's deck. This one is about playing Rebuild as much as possible, as many times as possible, generating tons and tons of power, drawing as many cards as possible, replaying those rebuilds from Revenge and then from your Void, and then having enough power to finish the opponent off with either Flame Blasting them to the face for 20 or 30 damage, or just chipping here and there with cards like Torch Transpose and even Maul as a backup plan. So yeah, this is all about just getting as much influence as possible, churning through your deck, controlling the board as well, because, well, you don't want to die to aggro. That is why we have those Torches, Hailstorms, and Turn to Seeds. Also, Garden of Omens helps a lot, as you might see this once again as a bad version of a Spellcrack deck. And it is. It is more of a funky meme deck and a thought experiment than a viable tier 1 deck. It's more like tier 3 at best. But when it goes off, once again, it is glorious. Indeed. As far as the cards in the deck go, aside from the 8 Evangels, we have the power base that consists of 4 crests, 6 seats, 2 banners, 8 Silexes, and those Silexes are very handy. It is quite good that we have them here. If we had all 10 cycles, all 10 versions of Silexes, for sure I would be playing the 4 Praxis ones here as well. Unfortunately, I have to go for banners when I'm not running units, and 6 seats when I only have 5 sigils in the deck. But once you have that fire sigil in your hand, 6 seats come into play ready, and usually those Silexes come into play ready. So you do have at least 13 sources of power that come into play ready. You also have Wraths of Caiaphas, and remember you can pay 2 to swap this from your hand with a random power card from your deck. Those paired with, well, the Evangel cycle means that you will have, or at least you should have, enough influence to start playing out your cards. And Linrai Evangels and not a lot of other primal sources, because you only have 8 Silexes and 2 seats. Because earlier in the game you just need 1 to play your Strategize, to play your Honor of Claws, to draw deeper into the deck. And then at max you need 2 primal to play your Turn to Seed, Hailstorm, and Garden of Omens. And for the Silexes to give you treasure troves and draw you further down your deck. But we need to go quite heavy on the time side. That is why we have up to 16 sources of power that give us time influence, because, well, that rebuild is quite necessary for this deck to go off. So you need to play those, and fire can just go to the max. Also 19 sources and 4 Evangels give us fire, because fire is very necessary for that rebuild. The main core of this deck is similar to, once again, the Smurf Garden, as a Skycrag control deck consisting of Garden of Omens at its base, the 5-costing double Skycrag site that says your spells cost 1 less, and in this deck that consists of lots and lots and tons of spells, yeah, that comes into play very handy. Also allows you to kill an enemy attachment, kill an enemy unit, and move a spell of your choice to the top of your deck. Here you're not using Reflection for 0, but you can use Strategizes or Treasure Troves of Silexes for 1 to immediately draw the card that you're putting on the top of your deck. Also, if you have Garden in play, and the first card you draw is a revenge spell like Rebuild. Then the Rebuild goes on the stack. Yes, I have to say on the stack, an old Magic the Gathering term. And then you can play your Resurface, put a card on the top, then the Revenge Rebuild gets resolved, and you get to draw the additional card off of Destiny, which is very cool because, well, yeah, it allows you to do that. Or if you play Garden of Omens, you put a card on top, you play Reread for 1 because it is discounted, you get a Destinied Rebuild from your Void, which means you draw it, and if you draw a card with Destiny, you immediately play it for free. You get the influence, and Destiny also says that you get to draw the card that you've just resurfaced. So there are a lot of small and big combos in this deck, and it is quite brainy at times, and as you're gonna see in the videos. So yeah, a lot to do, a lot to think about, a lot to consider, and the timer is not your friend. Believe you me, the timer in this, when you're playing this deck, is not your friend. Yeah, let's go to the spells. There are 38 of them here. 2 copies of Flame Blasts. Deal 1 damage. Spend your remaining power to increase the damage dealt by that much. Remember, if this is discounted, then you're dealing 1 plus the remaining power. So yeah, that Garden of Omens deals 1 more damage with Flame Blast. The influence requirement is quite heavy, but you're just using it usually as a finisher. 4 copies of Torch, the 1 costing fire spell that deals 3 damage to a unit or player. Just 3 copies of Transpose, the 1 costing primal fast spell that deals 2 damage to the enemy player. You gain an Aegis, and I said it time and time again, the longer we play Eternal Card Game and the more cards we get, the more value goes for face Aegis because it just blocks so many bad effects. Also, you may swap a card from your hand with a 4-cost card in your market. Now here's also where things get tricky, because Garden of Omens says your spells cost 1 less wherever they are, in your hand, deck, void, and market. So if you have Garden of Omens out and you're playing Transpose, then that Forbidden Research and Mortar that usually cost 4, you cannot get them. You can get the units, Luminary Claimer and Sabertooth Pride Leader, but this is also where Prodigious Sorcery in the market comes in very handy, because if you have Garden of Omens out, usually that means you are kind of comboing out, and you usually should have a lot of power, etc., etc. So you're playing that Transpose, and you can get Prodigious Sorcery because it now costs 4, and this also allows you to get a double damage Maul or a double damage Flame Blast and just kill the opponent that much easy. But I'm gonna just talk about the market cards in a moment, just saying it right now with Transpose. Now, Reread is the 2-costing primal spell that says draw a spell from your void, it gets void bound. This also is very handy and one of the cornerstones of many of my control/combo decks, like Last Light Judgment deck, like the Firebombs deck, like this one. Because those are usually about playing the same spell over and over again as many times as possible. And this is perfect for that. 4 copies of Strategize, the 2-costing primal slow spell that says draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. Usually it's Evangel. Even if you have tons of power cards in your hand, usually it should be that Evangel, because you're not using that to win the game. 4 copies of Hailstorm, the 3-costing double primal spell that says deal 3 damage to each unit because you need to stay alive. 4 copies of Rebuild as the core engine of the deck. 4 copies of Turn to Seed, the currently, in my opinion, the best primal removal, and another reason for us to need Hailstorm, because we need to get rid of all the seeds. It says choose an enemy unit, transform it and each enemy copy into O2 seeds, including from their hand, deck, and void. Yes, I think this card is very powerful. Yes, I like playing with this card. Yes, I think it might get nerfed sooner or later, but as it stands, this is one of my favorite primal cards in control decks. Plain and simple. 4 copies of Honor of Claws, of the 4-costing primal spells that says draw 3 cards, then discard a card. 1 copy of Maul as another finisher card aside from Flame Blast. It's a 6 costing primal spell that says deal 2 damage to the enemy player for each card in their hand, and remember you can refill your opponent's hand with Wrath of Caiaphas. The 7 costing spell that says each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. Or earlier in the game you can swap it for a power card from your deck. I've already talked about the power base. Now all that is left is the market. Forbidden Research is the 4 costing double primal fast spell that says draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards, and gain double Justice or double Shadow. This card is here just because I needed a card draw in the market that I can get with Transpose, and I already have Honor of Claws main deck. Justice or Shadow doesn't gain us anything, unfortunately, so this is just for face value, this is just for churning through cards that we're not using, like some Hailstorms against control decks and such. Luminary Claimer, the 4 costing double time Radiant, that is a 4/4 unit. On summon, you get to shuffle a Void of your choice into its owner's deck. Usually it is the opponent's deck if they're playing a Reanimator style deck, or it is your own deck if you're playing against a mill deck. Also Entomb, which means when it dies you get to put 4 copies of Luminary Claimer into your deck, trying to make certain you don't get milled. Ever. Unless they turn into seed, then you're just getting milled later. Mortar is the removal of choice in the market, the 4 costing Skycrag fast spell that deals 4 damage to anything, could even be a sight. Sabertooth Pride Leader as my relic removal of choice. Also, this doubles up as an anti-aggro card. 4 cost double time 3/5 Ambush Kitty, summon, kill an enemy relic, or you gain 3 health. Remember, ambush stops are not the same as fast spell stops, so you can't play this in response to a spell-like effect, just to an attack or at the end of the opponent's turn. And Prodigious Sorcery, the fast spell that draws 2 spells that deal damage from your void, and if you lose 1 maximum power, you give them double damage. And then later you can reread either Prodigious Sorcery, or you can reread those spells, and even without Flame Blast, even without Maul, you can just torch and transpose your opponent to death. Is this deck good? No. Is this deck fun to play? Yes, but also frustrating because you're gonna lose a lot of games before you win one. But you wanna see how to win one? And I do hope your answer was yes. The first game is played with a slightly older version of the deck that also included 4 copies of Caleb Executioner and Grot of Evangels instead of Linrai Evangels, but most of the rest is quite the same. And well, in this one I'm not using Caleb Executioner anyway, so yeah, that is just one that is getting discarded. Okay, so we do have an up on Time Influence, and we have some card draw, and Wrath of Caiaphas is usually good, but we can draw one later as well. So just going for the slow opener. Garden of Omens, yes, but we will need a second primal source to play that one out. And now we can play that primal source with Skycrag, Silex, and play a Strategize. Or we could go for a Crest and go for Honor of Claws next turn, but I opted to start drawing right now. And we can put that Grot of Evangel to the bottom. Right now I would put Caleb Executioner to the bottom because, well, that is not one for this deck at this moment. Yeah, if not for the double Honor of Claws in hand, I would probably keep that, because that's draw 2 and get rid of a card that's not getting played, i.e. the Executioner. Besiege the Throne, sure. Ghostblade Outcast. Yeah, that doesn't do much. And we're gaining more fire. So I think this is about time to just play Honor of Claws and discard Shavka Evangel. Or Grot of Evangel, but I think Shavka is the first one to go. Because Grot can at least charge. Yeah. I mean, I'm not playing the other one anyway. Reread, we already have one, so the other one is not that necessary right now. Minotaur Platemaker. Okie doke. That makes it slightly more scary. And a Wrath of Caiaphas. So there are a couple of options here. I want to get rid of what the opponent has, that's for sure. One of the options is to Garden of Omens and just kill the double damage one and lose Garden of Omens. Yeah, I can go rebuild, get 2 more power. I obviously should have played the power before playing rebuild, because that's just 1 more power available for us. In this case, it doesn't matter, because we're not playing reread right now. We are just doing killing the Platemaker and playing Hailstorm over here. But already 1 punt down. Svetia, Merciful Oreen. Alright, let's try to finish this game as soon as possible. And we are getting that rebuild. And in response, well, now is our way to resurface. We can resurface for another rebuild. And we're gonna draw that off of this Destiny. And we can play this rebuild. Put it somewhere in the top 10 cards of our deck. Gain 4 temporary power. Play rebuild. Get that for 1. Get 6 power and draw a card. Play Crest of Impulse to see what's on top. And that is that Destiny rebuild, sure. So we can go Wrath of Caiaphas or Honor of Claws, one or the other, honestly. Redraw the hand. Up to 22 max power. We can play another Garden of Omens, search for yet another card and reread our rebuild to get slightly more power in here. But the timer is gonna start running out on us quite soon, so you gotta be very decisive. You gotta be very decisive when you're playing this deck, and you have to know how to count to 28. In this case, at least. And I was just thinking and counting quite heavily. Seeing what I still have in the void for reread, etc. So let's replace that. Let's resurface for probably another rebuild. Yes. We can reread for the previous rebuild, draw a next rebuild, play the other rebuild, and just go even higher on power. And we are up to 28, and as you can see, the timer is starting to run out. I'm going for Honor of Claws first. Getting a Wrath of Caiaphas is very good. So I'm torching face, I'm playing Wrath of Caiaphas. Fortunately, the timer is getting slower a bit for each spell that I play. So I have some options of thinking a bit about what's happening. Rebuild gives us a bit more here. So I can go and Honor of Claws and try to draw into something. We have a Flame Blast here and a Grot of Evangel, that's good, but the Flame Blast doesn't do that much unless we go for the yet another rebuild, get even more power, and shoot the opponent in the face for 31. I hope that mathy sequence was enough for you. Let's get on to game number 2. Yeah, this hand doesn't do much. So let's just ship it back. Please. What? Okay. I guess I can win even with this hand. I mean, I do have some scouts. Yeah, Flame Blast is gonna be necessary later. Right now, this is not the removal of choice. Strategize, sure. And opponent is going to go for Arcanum Hourglass. Okay, so it's probably a Katra deck. Allegiance Silex first, ask questions later. Well, first also we can just strategize. And Fire Sigil to the bottom. We just need 4 time, 2 primal, and the rest is gonna go fire. Malaise Self. So they have some power in the void. Or do they? Yeah, I think I can put the Fire Sigil to the bottom, play the Seed of Impulse. They are getting a power. And they are getting another Arcanum Hourglass, okay. And a Karendon Merchant, sure. Yeah, let's go Garden. Kill their unit. No, I went for kill their Arcanum Hourglass. Okay. Without any power in the void. I have no idea what I was thinking. But that was a stumble. I should have killed the unit and that's it. Nahid the Immortal. Okay. Let's take 7 damage because we have no units. Now, fortunately we can go for second Garden of Omens. Ice Bolt their Nahid. And Flame Blast deals 1/1, so it can kill the buffed 2/2 Karendon Merchant. And we do have some cards to play starting next turn. We can resurface for a rebuild and start going. Wait, Zindel's Gift? Seriously? So change of plans, we're gonna go and melt it down. Okie doke. That didn't make much sense in my opinion. But okay. And on top we get a reread, sure. So let's draw into that reread. Shavka Evangel is getting discarded. Easy peasy. And I don't think we are going to need both Wraths of Caiaphas. Checking if I played the power already, and next turn. At any cost kills the site. That is unfortunate, but we did not need that site that much right now. I'm thinking how much I can go for with rebuild and redrawing cards, but I think right now I don't need to go for that. Instead, I opted to reread Meltdown, get rid of Arcanum Hourglass for the opponent. Crest of Wisdom, what does it do? Hailstorm is not necessary right now, so let's go for Treasure Trove. Honor of Claws is quite nice. Nahid the Immortal once again, sure. So I'm thinking of going for Luma Reclaimer because it seems the opponent is gonna go for some reanimate things. No, I went for Mortar. Okay, this means I can Hailstorm and Mortar and deal 7 to Nahid. Okay, that makes more sense. I don't need to go for Rebuild because I cannot go for Wrath of Caiaphas after that. I don't have enough power. I would just have 4, not 7. Sure, smuggler. Rebuild. We can go Hailstorm and Wrath of Caiaphas. We don't care about those Evangels that much, just for the influence that they give us. And Rebuild is giving us some power already. And yeah, they have some units in their void now. So I went for Crest of Impulse, Torch on top. We don't need it right now. We could go for Transpose, get rid of Seat. And go for Luminary Claimer and reshuffle the opponent's void back into their deck. Sure. A Zindel revealed. Okay. Cindy is bad news, but we can turn Cindy to seed. No, I don't think I want to transpose right now. Okay, so turn to seed, reread Hailstorm and attack for 4. Seems like a decent option. Can also resurface for Wrath of Caiaphas and redraw some cards. Play the power so we can go reread. Wait, transpose. Oh, I went for a rebuild. Anyway, that makes a bit more sense. Probably. Okay, now I can reread the Hailstorm. Can I? Please, please, please. Silex is going to give the opponent a redraw of the treasure trove they've gotten. Yep, exactly. Opponent's also thinking a lot about what to play and how to play, and yeah, this is taking some time. They're gonna go for Sporfolk into second Sporfolk to feed their void for some future plays. And self-malaise? No, malaise us. Okay. So that's how you want to do it, opponent. Okay. Now what we can do is we can Ice Bolt one of their units. Go for Silex, draw a card. No, not yet. Okie doke. So I went resurface for a rebuild. Into a rebuild. Into play that Grot of Evangel. Into Wrath of Caiaphas. Into redraw my power into something that's... into cards that do something. a Shafka Evangel. And it is interesting because if we get a Shafka Evangel before we draw a rebuild, then the rebuild is one better, even. Yeah, let's draw some more cards with Honor of Claws now. We are going so deep through the deck, this is really crazy. Another fire and a maul that deals 14. So this is where we can go for a clutch attack if the opponent does not block, and they are not incentivized to block at all. If we can knock down the opponent to 12, then that maul is lethal. Just out of the left field. Alright, more Heart of the Cards continues in game number 3 in a moment. Roots. Bloody roots. Okay, we do have some power. We do have a turn to seed. Time is slightly lacking here, but yes, we can keep this. Okay, rebuild, but just one time influence. That's gonna take a moment. Devotee of Sand, sure. Get blue, get a power. That's a time sigil. And a Gen of Merchant. And here I was feeling a bit weak because I thought they would go for a Royal Decree. And I also made a misplay. I played a Time Sigil instead of Skycracked Silex, and I was unable to go for a Hailstorm. So I literally lost a turn. I was not very happy about that one. And if I had played Silex and Hailstorm last turn, I could have played Seed of Impulse this turn with me having a Time Sigil in hand. Remember, this one had a Time Sigil, so this means the power base is a slightly older version. And look at that, opponent is playing Diogo Malaga, Elonze. So that means it's probably a Diogo combo-esque deck. So I'm just gonna go turn to seed here and get rid of the merchants because the market is where the opponent's power lies. Zalchi, Herald of War, sure. We're taking 10. Fortunately, I can reread my turn to seed. But I could also play Rebuild, get up to 8 power, 5 for Garden, 1 for Reread, 2 for turn to seed. So this one Ice Bolts, the 3/5. They get a power, sure, whatever. And we reread turn to seed, and we play turn to seed. And end turn. Now all we need is a Hailstorm in a couple of turns, and we should be good. Or win before that. That's also an option. Gotta remember, opponent has a Destinied spell, probably 8 of the Huru. Smuggler, sure. This means I want to get rid of their Power Stone to depower them and to depower the Smuggler as well. Because maybe I can draw into a Hailstorm or something like that. So I want to start drawing cards. I can strategize first because I have a card that I can put on the bottom, and that is Shafka Evangel, and another Shafka Evangel. I want to Honor of Claws because it digs deeper for that Hailstorm. And Evangel can leave once again, or it can become a blocker. Torch on top, okay, so we can go Treasure Trove and Torch their 2/2. And I still have that rebuild somewhere on top. So I can resurface for a non-Destiny rebuild, because I will have enough power to do that, to do it all. And play Fire Sigil. Play Wrath of Caiaphas. In response, the opponent is going to Celestial Omen for 8 of the Huru. Play that, gain some armor, draw some cards, get them redrawn. Yeah, and we have that Destiny rebuild already. And a Transpose, another rebuild. Okay, how much power can we get out of this one? That was my main question. So this was also another mathy puzzle. But we can still rebuild into rebuild. And, well, opponent is on 29. And we have 25 plus 1, 26 and 27, 28 with Transpose. So we are a bit lower. But here is where Prodigious Sorcery comes in very handy. Because we have Garden in play. So Prodigious Sorcery costs 4 and we can Transpose for it. We can play Transpose, get rid of one of the Evangels. Get Prodigious Sorcery, play it, get double damage on Torch and Transpose, which deal 10 damage to the opponent down to 17, and we will Flame Blast them for 22 remaining. Remaining. Get anything and Flame Blast face. Sometimes it works, and it was glorious. Alright, let's go back up top and talk about the deck some more. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the Evangels of Flame. Yeah, there's probably a better name for this deck, like Rebuilding Caiaphas's Garden of Flaming Evangels. Deck. Yeah, but that really doesn't fit here in this short place. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This is going to be it for this episode of Deck Check. Remember, do not crap this deck if you want to get a high win percentage. This is more of a meme deck, like literally tons of memes more than anything else. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, if you're enjoying the show and enjoying my deck checks, click on subscribe. This is going to be it for this week. Calebovitsch out.